Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, upvote, comment, and of course, join the Subtext community. That link is in the description as well. If nothing else, look at it as a tip for me for all this great content that I throw out for you, including bringing in Locked On's very own recruiting expert, Brian Smith, into the house. How you doing, Brian?
Doing well, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. We are getting ready to hit official visits, unlimited official visits in camp season. So I'm kind of fired up from content from that perspective.
Well, you should be. Ole Miss, unlike them historically, like when I was growing up, they used to recruit very regionally. We got kids from Arizona, kids from Florida, kids from Pennsylvania. They're recruiting all over the place. And, of course, Lane Kiffin is his own universe. So it's pretty interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, and the first two major official visits, I guess, coming into Oxford, we'll start with Dillon Hipp. He's a tight end out of Arizona, and if anybody has any questions, Damon Williams is from Arizona, so that's probably the connection there. He seems to be really high on Ole Miss. He's coming in to see it. I think he has 4 officials set up, but Ole Miss is in a pretty good position here, right?
That's what I've heard. And just to clarify on him, he's a kid that can play inline or he can play out, which, again, Lane Kiffin likes that. He's name a coach that's done better with big receivers / flex tight ends than Lane Kiffin. I think there's a draw there. So I'm a big fan of the idea. And if a kid like that is from Arizona, what difference does it make to Lane? I mean, he's a great prospect. So I'm guessing a certain quarterback that you mentioned is also interested in that. My only question is, do they find a way to lock it up, or is this going to drag out? And that's why kids take the visits. I can't answer that. Only Dillon Hipp can. But Ole Miss, I think, has a chance to do that during the month of June.
Yeah, Dillon is more of a true tight end than this player, but how do you think it would affect somebody like Caleb Odom if he went ahead and pulled the trigger?
I don't think so. Odom's a totally different animal. I was told Ole Miss even told him he can play receiver. I mean, again, Lane just prefers bigger guys. That's his, it's his philosophy, back shoulder throws, etc. And Odom's got phenomenal hand-eye coordination. Hipp can play out, but yeah, like you said, he would actually be the complement to Odom, really, because you could put a 22 package in, put 2 running backs back there, the quarterback, but then split out the tight ends. You put defenses in really awkward spots when you do that. So I don't think Caleb Odom would really care.
Okay. Another official visitor coming into Oxford is Joseph Cryer. I think he's an offensive lineman out of Louisiana. He's visited Ole Miss a couple of times. This will be an official. What are you hearing about Joseph?
Sounds like to me, based on what I've been told, that Ole Miss is the leader in the clubhouse. He's been there a couple of times. He kind of knows the staff, and he's got a great relationship with the O-line coach. And O-linemen are a little different. They generally commit early like quarterbacks. And just the vibe I got from just doing a little bit of research, that's probably not going to go long. Wouldn't be surprised if he committed shortly after his visit to Oxford. And they need more guys up front. This is the class they've got. A couple of years ago, they got a big O-line class. Now they kind of have to do it again every other year or so. This guy fills a need. He could play possibly center, but he could play guard, and he's a power kid out of Louisiana. Like I told you before the show, I love Louisiana prospects. Anytime you can get them, you should grab them.
Yeah, and we talked about another kid, kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit, but we talked about him pre-show. Rahji Dennis out of Edna Carr in New Orleans. Just surprise committed to Ole Miss in the middle of the week. He's a 10-2 100 guy, ran a 20.1 200 meter. I mean, he's a pure track guy, but if you look at his highlights, there's not many of them, but he reminds me a little bit of Trendon Holiday, if you remember him at LSU.
Oof. That guy was shorter, but when he caught the ball, you're like, hold your breath here, because it's going to take a few of you to pin him in. That dude was shot out of a cannon. This kid's a little taller than Trendon, but look, I live in Florida where track is really, really important. Anytime you're below 10.5 in the 100 meters, dude, you are flipping, just flying. You are flying. So if he can learn anything with receiver routes, how to take a shovel pass, how to take a jet sweep, he can impact the other team. And again, Lane loves the little nuances like that. Motions and fakes with the quarterback. If you know a kid across the line runs 10-2 or something like that, the linebacker has to move. Mm-hmm. And then you can run backside. You can just run the most generic play to the backside away from it. You get 10 yards. I mean, Lane's not stupid. He didn't get this job by being dumb. He knows how to scheme. And if they can coach this kid on how to run routes, he could be an NFL player. You cannot teach that kind of track speed.
Yeah, and I talked on my show, and my everydayers can attest to this. I'd say this offense that Lane runs is designed to torture linebackers. It's designed to create false steps.
Absolutely.
And somebody like Dennis, you could put him running those jet sweeps, just those jet motions. He doesn't even have to get the ball every time. It's going to cause false steps.
It's the game within the game, and it's why defensive coordinators hate the spread. Because no matter the package that you're in, and it's, again, like the 22 package, if you put 2 tight ends out there, they're going to run power. Are they? You know what I mean? And then you split out some 235-pound flex tight end, and he's your lead blocker for a kid that runs a 10-2, and the kid that he's blocking is a $180. It's not good. It's not good. That's what it does, though. Yeah. There's no real answer for that because you don't know what they're going to do based on package anymore. It used to be pretty easy. Not anymore.
Yeah, last year, like towards the end of the season, whenever Ole Miss started struggling a little bit, is because they've gotten a little bit too predictable in their scheme. It was just Quinshawn running inside zones. They're going on forward. They couldn't run the jet sweep game because they had snap problems. There was no real tight end threat over the middle of the field. So the linebackers could just, hey, we just have to deal with number 4. So Lane Kiffin is out recruiting to try and, hey, we need to get tight ends in positions. Caden Priestcorn, Michael Trigg. We need to find somebody to run those jet sweeps. Oh, here's somebody that runs a 10-2. And you can see exactly how Lane is kind of trying to affect the defense.
It's not rocket science. Sometimes you just need a nuance to change things because Judkin's a special player. He's as good a running back as there is in college football already. So if they can compliment him and he doesn't see 7 and 8 man boxes, which I'm sure he's not real thrilled with, he'll run for 1,500 yards, even though he's in the SEC West. He's a special dude, but you got to compliment him. And hopefully they can stay healthy this year and they can do that. But adding pieces like the kid we were just talking about, look, people can say they're fast, but then there's 10-2. I mean, that's a whole other animal.
Yeah, that's moving. But him committing, everybody's been waiting on somebody like potentially Noreel White to flip or J.J. Harrell to flip or the Braylon Burnside to actual pop. Well, Noreel White put out a tweet, I guess it was over the weekend, and he was just basically, hey, Merry Flipness, and he forgot the question mark. And so that was just taken all crazy. It was done in the middle of the night, which, if you're a high school player, you should not be up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But man, it just started a firestorm. I can't imagine that it's 8 o'clock in the morning. His phone's blowing up from Sam Pittman and his is like, what is going on here? All of a sudden the Ole Miss people are picking that up as well. So it just made for a very interesting weekend for him. But I mean, you got to be careful about that stuff, right?
Social media and 16 to 20-year-olds is not always a good thing. When I read through and I saw all the reaction to that, I'm like, I can't even imagine the phone call he received from his high school coach at some point. It probably wasn't one that would be repeated on the public air because you're representing that program and stuff. And, there's nothing wrong with the University of Arkansas, but if you're going to decommit, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. And that is pretty much a way not to do it. So I assume he's going to go to Ole Miss. It's not like it's a shock what that tweet means, but he probably could have done a better job with it. He's a heck of a player, but he needs to be a little more mature with how he uses social media.
And people that's paying attention, that Noreel White's going out to be one of the receivers for the Elite 11 with Damon Williams. So there's that name again. Look, Mom, there's that man type situation. And
That's
he's
right.
popping up all over recruiting at Ole Miss sports right now. Anyway, thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on this show. I may talk a little basketball recruiting. I do not know. We'll see. It'll be a surprise a little bit. Anyway, Brian, thank you very much for stopping by today, and we'll see you again next week, bud.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right.